Second Peter, Second Peter 2, verse 6. We've just talked about Noah and his day, and God destroyed that. Verse 6. And turning the cities, plural, not just one, the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemning them with an overthrow, making them an example unto those that after should live ungodly. Whoa. You notice how he's connected 5 and 6 together? 5 is Noah's day. 6, he says, those that would live after ungodly. So this ungodliness in Noah's day is this satanic thing the giants producing. It appears the same thing's going on in Lot's day. He says, and he did this so that they would have an example of ungodliness. Who's the they that's get the example? Well, of course, we have it because we've got it written down, but they do too. They've got it. They know about it. They live much longer than we do, unless they do this stunt and get limited to 120 years. But those disembodied spirits are still up there. They've been there for thousands of years. So they know about it. He said that's going to be an example for them to know what happens if you want to be ungodly. Verse 7. And delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. Now, I wouldn't say that Lot was necessarily that righteous. However, God's comparing here the difference between ungodly and just. If you're saved, you're just. You're justified. However, that doesn't mean that you're always right. Because we're not. However, there is a dividing line between those who are God's and those who are not. And he says he knows the difference. And he's reserved a place for those who are not. Okay, let's see if we got off track here a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I was going to go here. We already did it. The angels that kept not their first estate. Let's go here because there's one thing I want to add to it. Jude 1, verse 6. Jude 6. Actually, we're going to back up to verse 5. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. Now, we would think, okay, he saved them out of Egypt. We don't really read anything about giants in Egypt. Jude is an advanced book. You get some information in Jude you don't find in the rest of the Bible. I mean, you find bits and pieces, but not much. He's talking about something that's connecting Egypt and this Sodom and Gomorrah that's going to show up in verse 6. And the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation. Okay, so he hath reserved in everlasting chains under darkness unto the judgment of the great day. I think he's talking about Noah's day here. Because then he goes on to another event that happened. Even as Sodom and the cities about them, in like manner to what? Just like happened in verse 6. Like was happening in verse 5. There's pyramids over there. That's not what little people think. There's Petra. That's not a little person. Okay. He says, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh. Now, of course, sodomy is strange, but that's not really strange flesh. I mean, you could stretch it to try to say it that way. Strange flesh would be celestial and terrestrial bodies mixing, or a dead person that is brought up from the dead and brought back to life. That's strange flesh. Are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. That happens at several places. Daniel 2, verse 43. He says, for whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they, iron, shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Okay. But they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. So you take, tearing things up. So you take two things that don't belong together and you put them together, and you might have a form that holds for a second, but it won't consist. It won't subsist. It's going to eventually fall apart. Miry clay and iron. That's what we had with the giant. The giant itself is not the spirit thing that came down. That giant is part human, part flesh. He says God's designed it in such a way it's going to fall apart. In fact, in Noah's day, when they lived to be long lives, he says Noah lives to be how old? 600 and something? No, he lives to be 800 and 830, I think. So those days that there was long lives, God says, I'm limiting it to 120. So he's done something to that body to break it down. And so that that mixing is not going to work right. That's not the way God designed it. Anytime you do something that's against the law that God has set in place, you might do it and think you got away with it, but nobody ever breaks God's law and gets away with it. You break it and prove it's still God's law. So that's what's going on there. Here's some examples of the ungodly. Look down in verse 10. The first phrase in verse 10. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust, 2 Peter 2, verse 10. But chiefly them that walk after the flesh in the lust of uncleanness. Okay, so that flesh thing, that's what all the move behind the devil is, to make everything about sex. That's what he's done. That word is used to describe anything. An inanimate object suddenly becomes a desirable thing, a sexually desirable thing. And the world thinks that's the normal way to talk about things. No, that's somebody's behind that. God's got a language and the devil's got a language, and the two don't mix. We were coming down, I take Augie to school. I was going down Brent, and across from where the hospital is, you can see where the Rawson Lane used to go through. They've got it blocked off now. Well, that's because all the PCC staff, I think, lives down there. Well, it was their day off, and they had a little kid on it was just a little go-kart, but it was fixed up to look like a race car. And so Augie saw it. Oh, that's sick. That's sick. So is he going to start puking? No, Bubba, sick means good. So, okay, is it good when you get sick? No. Okay. So see, they've trained them. It's already inbred in them to change, put light for dark and dark for light. And that's what's all going all the way through. All right. So he says here, chiefly them that walk after the flesh. Now, it's tricky because we wouldn't notice this right away, but one of the ways of walking after the flesh is this. despising of uncleanness, and despise government. Did you know that's fleshly? That's a weird one. Now, I want the government to be good too, but I sure don't find much call for in the Bible anybody getting up in arms about their government. It was all about pray that we can live godly and quiet and peaceful and do right. Not that our leaders get right. I mean, you think you want that, but that's not in the Bible. I don't see Paul, Peter, or any of the apostles picketing the government. And what that does is it creates a kingdom mentality. If I'm going to make the government good, I'm bringing in a kingdom after my own design. Now, I'm going to claim it's for spiritual reasons. But if I can do that, why does Jesus have to come back? Okay. So that's demonic. So stay out of the government thing. He says it's fleshly. Be careful with getting too involved in government. Governments are intended to be bad by God. I can prove it to you. He says he sets over it the basest of men. God says, I choose the rulers in the government, and I'm not going to pick somebody godly. That's God's choice. He said, I'm going to find somebody who's the basest of them, and I'll let him run it. Ooh. Nebuchadnezzar, Cyrus, all of those guys, those were handpicked by God because they're base men. So we're not big on government things. He says, presumptuous are they. Now here's the clincher. Self-willed. Now isn't that something? There's both parties. Self-willed. We will have this and we will, how dare you do that, and you're so self-willed. They're not afraid to speak evil of dignities. Now, it's not just speaking bad of them or speaking what we would call truth about them. He says evil. So the devil comes along and provides some maliciousness to add to your argument on both sides. You know, if you take a right wing far enough, you get just as wicked as if you were to take a left wing as far as it can go. Those birds end up being the same one. Both feathers end up, I'm tearing things up again. Both feathers meet in the middle and it's the same bird. So our government ain't of this world. Ours now, we want to live as quiet and peaceably as we can in the meantime, and we want as many righteous environments as we can have for our kids to grow up in, those type of things. However, we ain't gonna fix the government. We'd have to fight against God to do it. One day he's coming back and he's gonna fix it. All right, we got sidetracked. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Jude 1, verse 7. He said, even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication. So what they've done is, this is not individuals in it. He's talking about the whole city's this way. The whole city's given over to fornication. That's what they lived for. But that's right. In Lot's time, 5 cities: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboiah, and Zoar. 5 cities. Of those 5 cities, only 1 made it out. 4 of them he burnt to the ground. And Lot wanted to find a way to get into the 5th one that hadn't burned yet. Zoar. He gets in there and he's not there a day, and he starts looking around and says, wait a minute, this is just like the place I left. Yeah. He hightails it to the mountain where he was told to go to begin with. And when he's there, his daughters start cooking up some wickedness. because they've already been to all of those cities and they know where to get the alcohol. Wicked. Okay, that's Sodom and Gomorrah. Look at it in Isaiah 14. Isaiah 14. You know what Isaiah 14 is all about? Lucifer's fall. Man, their time is gone. He says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Verse 16. Here's his eventual end. One of the ways God humiliates the ungodly in their death is to turn them into the lowest form of a creature that he's created. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this that? Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? Die like men? Here's an angelic being. Lucifer was so high up, he thought, I'm already the cherub that covers. I might as well be God. And so he was that high up that he wasn't too far away in his way of thinking, and maybe by the others looking. And God says, no, matter of fact, I'm going to make you just the opposite. Instead of God, you're going to be man. That doesn't make us feel real good. But David has that take on it. He says, our frame is but dust. God says that about Adam after he sins. Dust you are, and to dust you'll return. No longer a living soul. Dust. Living dust. Okay, Ezekiel 28. Ezekiel 28, verse 2. This is the prince and the king of Tyrus. Same reference, Lucifer's fall. Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, Thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God. Now notice it's capital G. Doesn't mean he really was, means he knew what he was saying. I sit in the seat of God. This is not human. Most people will interpret this passage by saying the prince was the human that lived in the city of Tyre off of the coast. No, this is not human. There ain't no human ever sat in God's seat. Now, if you were the anointed cherub that covered the throne, wouldn't you be in God's seat? He says, in the midst of the seas, yet thou art a man and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. Just like Isaiah 14. And so there's his doom is now, I'll just make you like a man. I'll squish you. um, Genesis 3:15. I really need to come back to this. We'll start here. I don't know. We got too many wild things going on. Here's what we'll do. I'll pick up here Wednesday night. Remind me. So we'll pick up at examples of ungodly in 2 Peter 2:6. Then on Sunday, we'll cover the war that happens when Lucifer falls.